My name is Parker. I was 12 years old when I heard the phone call that changed everything. At the time, I lived in a quiet neighborhood outside Denver, Colorado. From the street, our house looked normal. Green lawn. White fence. 2 cars in the driveway. The kind of place people pointed at and said, "What a nice family." But people only saw what was outside. Inside, things were different. My dad worked long hours as an electrician. Most days, he left before sunrise and came home after dark. He was a good man, but he was always tired. Then there was my stepmother, Linda. Welcome to a new video of an American mom's tale. This story is about a stepmother. I hope you'll enjoy the story. This will make your day, just watch completely. If you are new here, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks. Now let's get back to the story. When Dad married her 3 years earlier, everyone told me how lucky I was. Now you'll have a mother figure again. She seems wonderful. She really cares about you. I tried to believe them. I really did. But over time, I noticed something. Linda treated her daughter, Chloe, like she was the center of the universe. And me? I was usually an afterthought. If Chloe wanted new shoes, she got them. If I needed new shoes, Linda would tell me mine still looked fine. If Chloe forgot to clean her room, Linda laughed about it. If I forgot to take out the trash, Linda acted like I had committed a crime. At first, I thought maybe I was imagining it. Then the little things started piling up. Too many little things. One Saturday afternoon, Dad announced that we were going to an amusement park. I nearly jumped out of my chair. We hadn't done anything fun together in months. The whole week, I counted down the days. Saturday finally arrived. The sun was bright. The sky was clear. Everything felt perfect. Until breakfast. Linda placed a plate of pancakes in front of Chloe. Then another plate in front of Dad. Then she sat down with her own plate. I waited. Nothing came. Did you forget mine?" I asked. Linda looked up from her coffee. "There are frozen waffles in the freezer." The room went quiet. Dad frowned. "Why doesn't Ethan have pancakes?" Linda shrugged. "He can make his own breakfast." "Chloe helped me this morning." That wasn't true. Chloe had spent the entire morning watching videos on her phone. But nobody argued. Dad looked uncomfortable. Then he returned to eating. I quietly got up and made myself waffles. Nobody said anything. That was usually how it worked. The unfair moments happened. Everyone noticed. Then everyone pretended they didn't. At the amusement park, things got worse. Dad bought wristbands so we could ride everything. At least that was the plan. Whenever Chloe wanted something, Linda handed over money immediately. Cotton candy. Games. Souvenirs. Ice cream. A giant stuffed bear. Meanwhile, every time I asked for anything, Linda had an answer ready. "That's too expensive. You don't need that. Maybe later." Later never came. By evening, Chloe was carrying bags full of prizes. I had nothing. Not even a souvenir. As we walked toward the parking lot, I noticed Dad staring at the giant stuffed bear Chloe carried. Then he looked at my empty hands. For a moment, I thought he might say something. Instead, he just sighed. The drive home felt long. I stared out the window and watched the mountains disappear behind us. Nobody talked much. That night, after dinner, I went upstairs to my room. I wasn't angry. Not exactly. Mostly, I felt tired. Tired of trying. Tired of hoping things would be different. Tired of pretending everything was okay. Around 10 o'clock, I got up to grab a glass of water. The hallway was dark except for a small light coming from downstairs. As I reached the top of the staircase, I heard Linda's voice. She was in the kitchen. At first, I wasn't paying attention. Then I heard something strange. She sounded nervous. Almost excited. I stopped walking. Linda was speaking quietly into her phone. "Yes," she whispered. A long pause followed. Then she smiled. I could hear it in her voice. "Everything is ready." My stomach tightened. Ready for what? She listened again. Then she said something that made my heart start pounding. "Don't worry. We'll do it tonight." I froze. The kitchen suddenly felt very far away. For several seconds, I couldn't move. Who was she talking to? What were they planning? And why was she making sure nobody heard her? Then Linda turned toward the staircase. I quickly stepped backward into the shadows. My heart hammered against my ribs. A few seconds later, she walked out of the kitchen and headed toward her bedroom. I waited until her footsteps disappeared. Then I slowly looked down the hallway. The house was silent. But something didn't feel right anymore. I didn't know what Linda was planning. I only knew one thing. By tomorrow morning, our family might never be the same again. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I kept hearing Linda's voice in my head. "Everything is ready. We'll do it tonight." Those words didn't make sense, but they felt heavy, like they were hiding something important. I stayed in bed for a long time, staring at the ceiling. The house was completely quiet now. Even Chloe's room upstairs was silent. Dad's soft snoring came faintly through the wall. But Linda's words kept pulling me back. Finally, I got up. I told myself I was just going to get water again. Something normal. Something safe. But deep down, I knew I was really listening for something. The hallway was darker than before. The small light at the bottom of the stairs was still on, glowing softly like nothing was wrong in the house. That made it worse. Because I knew something was wrong. I walked slowly, step by step, trying not to make the floor creak. Halfway down the stairs, I stopped again. The kitchen light was off now. But I could hear movement. Soft sounds. Drawers opening. Then closing. A cabinet door. Linda was still awake. I stayed frozen on the stairs, holding my breath. Then I saw her. She walked into the hallway carrying a small bag. Not a purse. Something darker. Thicker. Like she had packed it quickly. She stopped near the front door and looked around carefully. My heart started racing again. Was she leaving? At this time of night? Linda pulled out her phone and checked the screen. Then she whispered something I couldn't hear. I pressed myself closer to the wall so she wouldn't notice me. After a moment, she opened the door just a crack. Cold air slipped inside. Then she stepped out. The door closed softly behind her. Silence filled the house again. I stood there, not moving, trying to decide what to do. Part of me wanted to run back to my room and pretend I saw nothing. That would be easier. But I couldn't. Because now I knew she had left the house in the middle of the night after saying those strange words. I waited a full minute. Then I followed. Outside, the air was chilly. The street was dark except for a few porch lights. Linda was already halfway down the sidewalk, walking fast toward the corner. I stayed behind trees and parked cars so she wouldn't see me. My heart was pounding so hard I thought she might hear it. At the corner, she stopped. A black car was waiting there with its engine running. The headlights were off, but I could see someone inside. The driver's door was slightly open. Linda got in quickly. The car didn't turn on its lights right away. It just sat there for a moment, as if they were talking. I crouched behind a mailbox across the street, trying to see better. Then I heard something that made my stomach drop. A man's voice from inside the car. It said. Linda nodded. Yes. Tonight. My hands went cold. Set. What was set? The car door closed. The engine started. Slowly, the car began to move down the street. I had a choice. Go back home and pretend this was nothing. Or follow. I swallowed hard. Then I started running after them. I didn't even think about how dangerous it might be. All I could think was one thing. Whatever Linda was planning. It wasn't small. And I had just seen the first piece of it. I ran. At first, it didn't even feel real, like my legs were moving on their own and my brain hadn't caught up yet. The cold night air hit my face as I crossed the street, staying in the shadows between parked cars. Every few seconds, I looked ahead to make sure I could still see the black car. It was moving slowly now, like it wasn't in a hurry. That made it worse. If it had been speeding away, I would have lost it immediately. But this felt like they didn't care if someone saw them. Or maybe they thought no one was following. My chest burned as I ran, but I didn't stop. I kept telling myself I just needed to see where they were going. Just that. Nothing else. The car turned left at the end of our street. I almost lost sight of it. Wait, I whispered to myself, running harder. I reached the corner just in time to see it pass under a streetlight. For a second, the light hit the windows, and I caught a clearer look inside. Linda was in the back seat. And beside her, someone else. A man. I couldn't see his face clearly, but I saw enough to feel my stomach twist. He wasn't looking forward like a normal driver. He kept glancing at Linda as they talked. Then the car turned again. I followed, even though my legs were starting to shake. Every block felt longer than the last. The houses around me began to change. Big yards became empty lots. Quiet streets became darker and wider. I realized I wasn't in my neighborhood anymore. I was going deeper into the edge of town. My mind kept shouting at me to go back. But I couldn't. Because Linda's words were still in my head. We'll do it tonight. Finally, the car slowed down. I quickly ducked behind a tall bush as it pulled into a small parking lot behind an old building. The building looked abandoned. One of its windows was cracked. A flickering light buzzed above the door, barely working. The black car stopped. I stayed hidden, watching. Linda got out first. She looked around carefully, then walked toward the building. The man followed her. They didn't see me. I crawled closer, staying low behind a row of trash bins near the fence. My hands were shaking so badly I had to press them into the ground just to steady myself. Through a broken gap in the fence, I could see them more clearly now. Linda was speaking quickly, her hands moving as she talked. I told you, it has to happen tonight, she said. The man crossed his arms. And if he finds out early? Linda shook her head. He won't. He trusts me. That word hit me harder than anything else. Trust her. She paused, then added something quieter. And the boy, he doesn't know anything. My throat tightened. The boy. Me. The man looked toward the building. It's already inside, he said. Inside? Inside what? I turned my head slowly toward the old building. The door was slightly open now. A thin line of light spilled out from inside, flickering like something was moving. My heart started pounding faster. Something was inside that building. Something they were planning around. I should have left. I should have run all the way home. But instead, I found myself moving closer to the fence again, trying to see better. Then I heard another sound. A small metallic clink. Like something being set down. The man spoke again, lower this time. After tonight, everything changes. Linda didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice was almost calm. It has to. A long silence followed. Then footsteps. They were walking toward the door. My body froze. I didn't know what was inside that building. But I know one thing for sure now. Whatever tonight meant, it was happening right in front of me. And I was the only one watching. I stayed crouched behind the fence, barely breathing. My eyes were fixed on that cracked door of the old building. The light inside flickered again, bright, then dim, then bright again, like it couldn't decide if it wanted to stay on. Linda and the man stood at the entrance now. They weren't arguing anymore. They were quiet. That silence scared me more than their words. Then the man pulled the door open wider. The light spilled out onto the broken concrete ground, and I finally saw inside. It wasn't what I expected. There were no weapons. No fighting. No danger like in movies. Instead, there were boxes. Stacks of them. Some were open, filled with papers. Thick folders. A laptop sitting on a metal table. And a small desk in the corner with a lamp that buzzed loudly. Linda walked in first like she knew the place well. The man followed behind her. I slowly moved closer, pressing myself against the fence so I could see through a wider gap. Linda picked up one of the folders. She opened it quickly and pointed at something inside. "Here," she said. "This is the one." The man leaned over. "Are you sure?" he asked. "Yes," Linda replied. "If this goes through tonight, there's no turning back tomorrow." My stomach tightened again. Turning back from what? Then I saw something that made my heart skip. On the folder she was holding, I could clearly read a name printed in bold letters. Mr. Daniel Parker. My dad. My fingers went numb. Why did Dad's name have a folder here? The man opened another box and pulled out more papers. "Once the report is filed," he said, "they'll assume it was an accident. The insurance will handle everything fast." Insurance? Accident? My mind felt like it was spinning. I didn't understand everything, but I understood enough to feel something cold spread through my chest. Linda crossed her arms. "And custody?" she asked. The man nodded slightly. "Without him in the picture, it becomes easier. No questions. No fight. Custody." That word hit me harder than anything else. It wasn't just about money. It wasn't just about papers. It was about us. About Dad. About our family. My throat felt tight, like I couldn't swallow properly. I wanted to back away. To run home. To wake Dad up and tell him everything. But my legs wouldn't move. Inside the building, Linda sat down at the table and pulled out her phone again. "Everything has to be sent tonight," she said. "By morning, it needs to look real." The man nodded and started typing on the laptop. Fast. Like he had done it many times before. I shifted slightly behind the fence, and a small rock slipped under my shoe. It made a tiny sound. Click. My body froze instantly. Inside the building, the man stopped typing. He looked up. "Did you hear that?" he asked quietly. Linda's head turned slowly toward the door. My heart stopped. I pressed myself harder against the fence, trying to disappear into the shadows. Seconds passed. Nothing moved. Then Linda walked toward the door. Slowly. Each step felt heavier than the last. I could see her shadow getting closer through the crack. She stopped right near the entrance. For a moment, I thought she would open it. I didn't breathe. Then, a car engine suddenly echoed from the road behind the building. Bright headlights flashed across the broken walls. Everyone inside turned their heads at once. The man stood up quickly. Linda stepped back from the door. Footsteps and a familiar voice came from outside the parking lot. A voice I knew better than anything. Linda. Why are you out here this late? My dad. He was here. Everything went still the moment Dad's voice echoed through the parking lot. For a second, it didn't feel real. My brain couldn't connect the sound to the situation in front of me. Dad. Here. In this place. At this time. I stayed frozen behind the fence, barely daring to blink. Inside the building, Linda moved fast. Too fast. She stepped away from the door and quickly closed the folder on the table, like she was trying to erase what was happening. The man beside her reacted too. He leaned over and shut the laptop, then slid it under the table. They weren't calm anymore. They were hiding. Outside, Dad's footsteps got closer. I saw your car leave earlier, he called again, his voice confused but steady. Everything okay? Linda answered immediately, but her tone changed. It became soft. Careful. Almost normal. We're here for a quick stop, she said, walking toward the entrance like nothing was wrong. Chloe needed something for school tomorrow. I didn't want to wake you. School. Chloe. Even I almost believed it for half a second. Dad's shadow appeared near the doorway. He stepped into the edge of the flickering light. He looked tired, still wearing his work jacket. One hand held his phone. The other stayed in his pocket. His eyes moved between Linda and the dark inside the building. This doesn't look like a store, he said slowly. Linda laughed lightly. A fake laugh. I could hear it even from where I was hiding. It's just storage, she said quickly. A friend of mine keeps things here. A friend. The man inside the building moved deeper into the shadows. I could barely see him now. Dad didn't look convinced. His eyes narrowed slightly. Linda, he said, quieter now, why are you really here? The air felt heavier. Even the buzzing light above the door seemed louder. I shifted just a little behind the fence, trying to see Dad better. I wanted to call out to him. I wanted to run to him. But something inside me told me not to. Not yet. Linda stepped closer to Dad, blocking his view of the inside. You've been working too hard, she said gently. You're tired. Let's go home. But Dad didn't move. Instead, he looked past her shoulder. Straight into the building. And for a split second, I saw it. His expression changed. Not anger. Not confusion. Something worse. Realization. What is this place? He asked again, sharper this time. Silence. Linda didn't answer. Inside the building, something fell. A small sound. Like a pen or metal clip hitting the floor. Dad heard it too. He turned his head toward the sound. I'm going inside, he said firmly. Linda grabbed his arm. Daniel, wait. But Dad pulled away. That was the first time I saw him really serious. Not tired. Not confused. Serious like when something dangerous was close. He took one step toward the door. My heart jumped. If he went inside, he would see everything. The boxes. The files. The laptop. The man hiding in the shadows. And whatever they were planning with his name on those papers. I couldn't stay hidden anymore. My body moved before I even decided. Dad! I shouted. The word came out loud and sharp across the empty lot. Everything stopped. Dad turned instantly. His eyes locked on me through the fence. "Ethan," he said, shocked. "What are you doing here?" Linda spun around too. Her face went pale for just a second. That second told me everything. She hadn't expected me. The man inside the building shifted again, deeper into the darkness. Dad stepped toward me. "Get out from there," he said quickly. "Now." But I didn't move. My voice shook as I pointed toward the building. "Don't go inside," I said. "Please." Dad looked at me, then at Linda, then back at the building. Something inside him changed again. He wasn't just confused anymore. He was listening. And that's when everything started to fall apart. For a moment after I spoke, nobody moved. It felt like the whole world had stopped to listen. The flickering light above the door buzzed louder, like it was nervous too. Dad stood in the middle of the parking lot, looking between me and the building. His face was tight, like he was trying to solve a puzzle that didn't make sense. "Ethan," he said again, more carefully this time, "come here. Now." But I couldn't. Not yet. Because Linda was still there. And now she wasn't hiding it anymore. Her expression had changed completely. The soft voice she used before was gone. Her eyes were sharp, focused, like she had dropped the act. "You shouldn't have followed," she said quietly. Dad turned toward her. "What is he talking about?" Dad asked. Linda didn't answer him. Instead, she looked straight at me. Something cold ran through me. Inside the building, I saw movement again. The man stepped closer to the doorway, like he was deciding whether to run or stay hidden. Dad noticed that too. His voice lowered. "Linda," he said, "tell me what's going on." For the first time, she hesitated. Just for a second. Then she said something that made my chest tighten. It was supposed to be simple. Dad frowned. "Simple?" She nodded slightly. "You were supposed to be away tonight. That's what was planned." Dad's face changed. Now he was fully alert. "What does that mean?" he asked sharply. Linda took a step back toward the door. "It means," she said, "this wasn't supposed to happen with him here." She looked at me again. At that moment, I realized something important. I wasn't just watching something by accident. I was part of it. Inside the building, the man suddenly moved. He grabbed the laptop again. Dad saw it. "Stop," Dad shouted. He started walking toward the door. Fast. Linda moved to block him, but Dad stepped around her. "Daniel, don't," she started. But Dad didn't listen anymore. He reached the doorway. And everything exploded at once. The man inside grabbed something from the table, a small black device, and shoved it into his pocket. Dad saw it. "What is that?" Dad demanded. The man froze. The silence that followed felt like a held breath. Then Dad stepped inside. "No." I shouted again. But it was too late. The moment Dad crossed the threshold, everything changed. The man backed up quickly into the shadows. Linda followed right behind Dad, but not to stop him. To watch him. That's when I understood something terrifying. She wanted him inside. Dad walked slowly into the building, looking at the boxes, the folders, the laptop, everything laid out like evidence. His voice dropped. "This is about my name," he said. Nobody answered. He picked up one of the folders from the table. I opened it. His face went pale. "What is this?" he whispered. I couldn't see the papers clearly from outside, but I saw his hands shaking slightly. That was something I had never seen before. Dad was afraid. The man in the corner spoke for the first time. "It's already in motion," he said quietly. Dad looked up sharply. In motion? Linda finally stepped forward. Yes, she said. And if it isn't finished tonight, it will get worse tomorrow. Dad looked at her like he didn't recognize her anymore. Worse for who? He asked. Nobody answered. And in that silence, I felt something inside me snap. I couldn't stay outside anymore. I pushed through the fence opening and ran toward the door. Dad! I shouted again. He turned instantly. Ethan, no, stay back. But I didn't stop. I ran straight into the building. And for the first time that night, I saw everything clearly. The boxes. The files with Dad's name. The computer screen showing documents I couldn't understand. And the truth that Linda had been hiding. It wasn't just a secret anymore. It was a trap. And we were standing right in the middle of it. The moment I stepped inside, the air felt different. Heavier. Like the room itself knew something bad was happening. Dad turned toward me immediately, his face tense with fear and anger mixed together. I told you to stay back, he said, his voice sharp but not cruel, more like he was scared for me. But I couldn't go back now. Not after seeing everything. Linda stood near the table, her arms crossed again, but her confidence was gone. She kept glancing at the man, like she was waiting for him to do something. The man finally moved closer to the laptop. I don't think this is going to stay quiet anymore, he said. Dad stepped between me and them without thinking. Talk to me, Dad demanded. Right now. All of you. For a moment, nobody spoke. Only the buzzing light filled the silence. Then the man sighed, like he was tired of waiting. He tapped the laptop screen. A document opened. I'll make it simple, he said. Your name is on financial transfers that don't look legal. Fake approvals. Hidden accounts. Dad shook his head immediately. That's impossible, he said. I didn't sign anything. The man shrugged. Doesn't matter. It looks real on paper. That word, paper, felt important. Everything here was paper. Files. Signatures. Reports. Things that could be changed without anyone noticing. Dad's hands curled into fists. Linda finally spoke again, softer this time. You were never supposed to get involved tonight, she said. Dad turned to her slowly. Never supposed to, he repeated. This is my life you're talking about. She didn't answer. Instead, she looked away. That hurt more than anything else. I stepped closer to Dad. What is happening? I asked quietly. Dad didn't take his eyes off Linda. Someone is trying to make it look like I did something illegal, he said slowly. Something I didn't do. My stomach dropped. But why? I asked. No one answered me. Then the man finally spoke again. Because once the report is submitted tonight, he said, everything will be locked. Investigations. Accounts frozen. Your name cleared out of your own life. Dad's face tightened. And you think I'll just let that happen? The man gave a small, tired smile. It's already halfway done. That's when Dad moved. Fast. He grabbed the laptop. Stop it, the man shouted. But Dad already had it in his hands. He turned the screen toward himself, scanning quickly. I saw his eyes move faster and faster as he read. Then he stopped. Completely still. What is this? Dad whispered. His voice wasn't angry now. It was broken. On the screen, I saw lines of information. Accounts. Names. Dates. And Dad's name everywhere. But something else too. A signature. It looked like his. But I could tell from his face, he had never signed it. Dad stepped back slowly. "This isn't real," he said again, but his voice didn't sound sure anymore. Linda finally spoke clearly. "It is real enough for them," she said. Dad looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. "You helped with this," he said quietly. She didn't deny it. That silence answered everything. My chest felt tight, like I couldn't breathe properly. "Why?" Dad asked her. Linda's voice cracked just slightly. "Because I had no choice," she said. Dad shook his head. "There's always a choice." For a moment, her face changed. Something like regret appeared. But it disappeared just as fast. The man suddenly stepped back toward the door. "We need to finish this now," he said urgently. "If we don't send it, we all lose." Dad looked at the laptop in his hands. Then at me. Then at Linda. And in that moment, I saw something shift inside him. Not fear anymore. Decision. He took a deep breath. "No," he said firmly. And then he did something none of us expected. He shut the laptop. The screen went black. The room fell into complete silence. Even the buzzing light seemed to pause. The man froze. Linda's eyes widened. Dad held the laptop tightly like it mattered more than anything else in the world. And then he said the words that changed everything again. "This ends now." The moment Dad said, "This ends now," the whole room felt different. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. But it was final. Like a door had closed that nobody could reopen. The man near the door looked nervous for the first time. He glanced at Linda, then at the black laptop in Dad's hands. "You don't understand," the man said quickly. "If that file doesn't go through tonight, everything collapses, for all of us." Dad didn't move. "I don't care," he said. "Not anymore." Linda stepped forward slightly, her voice lower now. "Daniel, just listen for 1 second." Dad looked at her, and I could see it in his eyes, he was trying. Even after everything, he was still trying to understand her. Was any of it real? He asked quietly. Linda didn't answer right away. That silence felt like a wound opening. Finally, she said, "I tried to protect you." Dad gave a small, painful laugh. "By destroying me?" Her eyes dropped. Inside the building, everything felt trapped, like no one could move without breaking something. I stood beside Dad, holding onto his jacket without realizing it. My hands were shaking. The man suddenly reached into his pocket again. Dad noticed immediately. "Don't," Dad warned. But the man pulled out a phone. "I'm sending it anyway," he said quickly. "If I don't, someone else will." Dad stepped forward. "No one sends anything." The man hesitated. And in that split second, everything changed again. A loud alarm suddenly sounded from the laptop, sharp and repeating. The screen had turned back on. Dad looked down. A countdown had started. 2 minutes. 1 minute and 59 seconds. 1 minute and 58 seconds. My heart dropped. "What is that?" I whispered. The man looked pale now. "It auto-submits if the system is interrupted," he said. "We can't stop it now." Dad stared at the screen, then at Linda. "Tell me how to stop it," he said firmly. Linda shook her head slowly. "I can't." For the first time, she sounded honest. Dad looked around quickly, thinking, searching, trying to find something, anything. Then he made a decision. He grabbed the laptop again. "I'm going to the source," he said. "What does that mean?" I asked quickly. But Dad was already moving. He ran deeper into the building toward the back room, where wires and a router box were mounted on the wall. The man tried to follow, but Dad turned and shouted. Stay back. It froze him for a second. I ran after Dad. Dad, wait. He reached the wall panel and started pulling at cables, trying to disconnect something. The countdown kept going. 55 seconds. 54 seconds. Faster now. Linda appeared behind us. Daniel, stop, she said urgently. If you cut it like that, it could trigger backup systems. Dad didn't stop. I don't care anymore, he said again, but this time his voice was different. Not angry. Not scared. Just done. He pulled the last cable hard. The lights flickered. The alarm stuttered. Then, silence. The countdown froze at 12 seconds. Everything stopped. We all stood still, waiting. Seconds passed. Nothing happened. 12 seconds, still there. Then suddenly, the laptop screen went black again. No alarm. No timer. Just quiet. I exhaled without realizing I had been holding my breath. The man leaned against the wall, shaking his head. It didn't send, he whispered. Dad slowly stepped back from the wires. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then sirens echoed faintly in the distance. Red and blue lights flashed outside the broken windows. Police. Someone had called them. The man immediately raised his hands. It wasn't me, he said quickly. Linda didn't move. Dad looked at her one last time. This is over, he said softly. And this time, it didn't sound like a warning. It sounded like the truth. Later. The building was full of officers. Flashlights moved across the boxes, the papers, the broken equipment. Everything was being photographed, collected, and sealed. I sat outside on the back of an ambulance blanket while a paramedic checked my hands. I didn't even realize I had scraped them until now. Dad sat beside me. He looked exhausted. But real again. Not confused. Not trapped. Just tired. Linda was taken away quietly in a police car. She didn't look at us when she left. The man was handcuffed near the entrance, still arguing with officers. But I barely heard any of it. I just watched Dad. After a long silence, I finally asked, "Is it really over?" Dad didn't answer right away. He looked at the flashing lights, then at me. Then he placed his hand on my shoulder. "Yes," he said. "Now it is." A cold wind moved through the empty lot. For the first time that night, it didn't feel like something bad was coming. It felt like something was finally ending. And even though nothing could erase what I saw, I knew one thing for sure. Our life wasn't going to be the same again. But at least now, it was ours again.